Hello, I'm David DeCosmo. Welcome to ECTV Live. With me, Rusty Fender, my co-host for the program.
Hey, good to see you, Dave.
Good to see you, my friend, too. We have with us today John Gleason from the Keystone Mission in Scranton, and also has an outlet in Wilkes-Barre as well. John and his volunteers and his staff are trying to do their best to deal with the problem of homelessness in northeastern Pennsylvania. And John, I know that we always start this way, but I think it's important for people that don't watch it all the time or don't keep track. How much of a problem do we have? You certainly aren't, we're not like a Los Angeles or a New York City.
True. That's true from the overall population standpoint. I'm not exactly sure if the percentages still may not apply. The difficulty is, most of the statistics that we see come out from HUD, but their definition of homeless is not exactly the same definition as I think you and I would use.
That's the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Yes,
right?
They're looking at people that have been homeless for 2 years or more. But the reality is, even if you've been homeless for a year and you end up sleeping on somebody's couch, well, the time span starts over again. And the organization that we belong to, Citygate Network, did a study about 3 years ago that had Baylor University look into faith-based organizations versus HUD and dealing with the homeless population. HUD at that point said that they were handling about 97% of the homeless population, and faith-based organizations, which we are one, handled the other 3%. Well, the Baylor University study took about a year, and they went to 11 cities around the country. The closest here were like Baltimore and Boston.
All right.
And what that study found from the faith-based organizations, and they didn't have to be a member, they could be all over the map, from independent to evangelical to whatever it might be.
Right.
But that study found that faith-based organizations in those cities were handling on average 58% of the need. So the continuum of care numbers in Lackawanna County for last year, which there'll be another count coming up in a few weeks in January, was 159 homeless people in the county of Lackawanna. Now, I can't remember what Luzerne's is, I'm sorry, but if we took that same formula, the Baylor study says that there's like 19 times that amount, which puts us into the thousands.
Yeah.
And just the amount of people that we have coming through the doors in Scranton, because our Scranton location is based much more on homeless versus people in need. In Wilkes-Barre, we deal with a lot of people that are in the projects and the like, and have different needs than the homeless. But in Scranton, our location is based within 800 feet of a number of tent camps and cardboard boxes and the like. And just on a daily basis, we have what we call a day room where people can come in and get warm, hot and cold drinks, watch some TV, have some conversations with some of our staff. We average between 50 and 70 some odd people a day that are coming and going, through ours. And then a few blocks from us is CIC, who has the same type of situation. Now again, not everyone that enters the door is homeless. Some actually have somewhere to go at night. But this is just in one city.
I guess it's really hard to keep a track on numbers, because there are some that probably don't come to you.
And you're
Correct.
not really registered anywhere too,
Right, well, and quite honestly, Scranton isn't the only city with homeless population. There are homeless people in Moscow, there are homeless people in Dunmore and Carbondale.
That's something we don't think about.
That's true. You just list the bigger city, and that's what you go by.
But all those cities are still in Lackawanna County. So, when you talk about 159, I can assure you, there are many, many more.
Yeah.
And then there's also, that don't fall in, again, to that definition of homeless. There are couch surfers, there's people living in the backseat of their car in a parking lot. There are still tremendous needs, for those. And it's not all, drug-related and addiction-related and the like. We've had people come through that We had one particular individual who came in that her husband had gotten sick. He was very ill, and through the course of what it took for that, He passed away, and they foreclosed on her house, and in her 50s was on the street with absolutely nothing.
Hey, you know, a lot of people think it's self-inflicted, but a lot of folks don't take the credit for it. A lot of this is fate.
Yes, yes. I mean, this was strictly circumstances. You may have even, I'm not sure if we ever interviewed Ma Kim, who, you know, is somewhat of a celebrity at the Scranton location, and she's been in our newsletters. But she's another individual that at 54 years old was living in a tent 3 blocks from us, you know, 6 years ago because of circumstances in her family where her parents had passed away, they had property and the like, and another family member got involved with drugs and the like and sort of stole and gave away all this kind of stuff, and she ended up literally never on alcohol, never on drugs, but 50-some years old, living in a tent because what she was owned was, you know, pulled out from underneath her.
And people don't see the problem and the need because, unlike those bigger cities that we mentioned at the offset of the program, like in New York or in Los Angeles, where you're literally walking down a main street and see people sleeping in the front of a store.
Walking over them.
Here, those that are homeless do locate in areas where most of us just don't normally go. But I remember you telling me in a previous program,
The hobo camp.
I think we had Martin in, that you had come across a whole lot of...
Behind the old A&P Bakery, which is now Penn Paper and Supply. So Olive at the Catacorner Railroad Bridge over in the back, and came across a hobo camp by accident, waiting while I had tires put on up the street at Jack Williams, and took a walk back there and came across something that I had only seen probably in the Grapes of Wrath movie before that, with burn barrels and the tarps and the whole ground covered with, you know, empty soda cans and food wrappers and, you know, fires burning in the middle of the day. And this was in summer. It was a real eye-opener, not to be dramatic, but you don't think of that at Olive Street, where you're literally a block and a half from a multi-million-dollar high school, Scranton High.
That's what I mean.
It's amazing.
Most of us don't see
That's
it here.
right.
Let alone in a Moscow or one of the other boroughs in the area.
Exactly, and you know, now with winter upon us and the leaves gone and the like, I was driving the Central Scranton Expressway the other day, and I looked over off, you know, one of the on-ramps, and there were 2 tents in the woods because you can see them now. You know, in the Wilkes-Barre area, you know, back behind a number of the shopping centers and the like, if you look around as you're driving, and now that there's no leaves on the trees, there are considerable amount of people that, you know, are living on the street, per se.
And I mentioned to Dave in a related show months ago that when the new Cary Avenue Bridge connecting Plymouth with Hanover Township was constructed about 10 years ago, that displaced about 30 people who had a makeshift wooden ladder that they would put the ladder up at night to come out from the island under the old Cary Avenue Bridge, which is, the island is still there. The new bridge is downstream. But nonetheless, they would put the ladder up and do their duties and their chores, whatever they needed to do at night, and take the ladder back down for safety and security reasons, and lived on the island under the bridge for decades.
Yeah, and you know, it's, as you said, there's not one answer. You know, one of the comments that are made in some of the studies, again, in the groups that we belong to that are rescue missions, is it's usually not even a matter of they ran out of money, but an individual runs out of relationships. You know, when there's no more family and there's no more, you know, that because how many of us are going to turn a blind eye to someone in need?
You run out of shoulders to lean on.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, sometimes, you know, there are circumstances where, okay, you have tough love, you know, you needed to make a decision, you know, but there's a significant percentage that's not the case. It's just that, you know, circumstances developed and put them into a spot. I mean, how many of us, no matter who we are or how much we've earned, haven't gotten ourselves into a financial spot that we don't like for a period of time? And what if something happened at that point? You know, would we have been able to overcome it, or would circumstances changed enough that we would be in a different place, you know, somewhere down the line in the future?
I think being, as you pointed out, a faith-based help organization, there's more of a closeness between you and those you deal with than something that's set up strictly bureaucratically.
Yes, I mean, we look. All the organizations do great work, and there's a need for pretty much everyone. But I think one of the things that we're sort of blessed with, and it's that bittersweet thing, we're 100% donation based. So we aren't relying on government money, and we aren't relying on head counts. So the good part of it is that we're not relying on those things. The difficult part is that we're relying on individuals, empathy and sympathy and just goodness, to fund us.
Sure.
But because of that, we work really hard when someone comes through the door to know them by name. If you've heard me before, you've heard me say,
it's a big self-esteem boost.
Well, when it's all said and done and we take our last breath, what goes on the headstone is our name. The only thing in life that we really ever had and we really hold on to is our name. So we work hard at knowing the names of the individuals that come in, and as you said, try to treat them. We believe we were created. We believe that our part of our existence is to treat each other as a equal creation, from our Lord. And then the reality is that, the least we can do is offer that dignity and awareness that, okay, who are you? You came in today, and tomorrow I remember who you are.
I know our pastors often say you see those 2 dates on the tombstone, but it's the dash in between that's important.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah. And so in turn, we try to, yes, we provide food, we provide clothes, we provide the unfortunate thing right now until we can locate a new building is that we don't provide overnight services, and that's the one thing that we're truly working on.
I did want to get into that because I know that one of the missions of the mission was to try to find something in the way of a location, and we talked last year, and that's why we hesitated and didn't bring you in quite as quickly as we normally would have, because you were hoping that maybe that search would. So how is it going?
Well, it's in process. I actually have a meeting coming up within a week with an individual or a company that has a building that is one of the considerations. So we're actively pursuing a building that we would be able to do an overnight shelter, and I think more importantly, a long-term recovery center. And I say recovery because at one point or another we're all addicted to something. Some are substances and some are just our behaviors and the like. But so the recovery center would be at least a year, where we would collaborate with some other organizations that we would try to be an all-encompassing center where we're providing some of the life skills and character building and biblical beliefs as far as how we should act and teach and learn and behave in our families and with other people. But in addition to that, we've got health issues and dental issues and mental health issues. So what we're looking to do is collaborate with some other organizations that they would come in under our roof, so that while they're there, they can get, excuse me, but soup to nuts, including, trying to talk to some of the larger employment companies that they would come in and even do job training on our location. Because one of the issues with a number of our guests is that sometimes there's something in their background that from a criminal standpoint, the felony or something, and there's more and more items becoming felonies, so there's more and more individuals that have something in their record. And when you're doing a job application now, that sort of excludes you automatically. Well, if you're staying in a program, where we're trying to restore you back to a productive, working, citizen, that so if I've got let's say for discussion's sake, the last 60 days or 90 days, that part of the program is learning a trade, and we've got 3, 4, 5, 6 different individuals that are teaching different trades. Well, at that point, the person has a vested interest that's still in the program because they want to be able to get a job when they get out. The individuals that are doing the training get to know us. If I show up every day and I actually am doing what they want me to do, and they can see that I've progressed, at that point where their cost is the trainer, but there's no cost in training me because I'm still in the program.
Right.
Well, at that point, we've developed But I've developed hopefully a skill, and they've developed a relationship with me so that when my tenure is finished in the program, well, now does it really matter what my background is, because you know who I am and you know what my capabilities are, and hopefully you'll want me to go and work at your facility.
Should give the individual a far better chance than of
than a piece of paper that says, I did something wrong 10 years ago.
Well, and again, with every process comes a problem. Now you're going to extend your hours to overnight, hopefully, and then again, burdens and taxes your operation because you're going to need more staffing.
Well, and that's one of the reasons we're looking at this collaborative arrangement, where we would continue to staff our programs, but the expertise, why do I want to try to hire and train one individual who's an expert in healthcare, for discussion's sake? Where if I can collaborate with one of the healthcare providers in the area, that they can come and, visit our place 1, 2, 3 days a week and deal with our clientele, they don't have their overhead costs because they're now in our place, but I don't have the overhead cost of an individual, nor do I need to try to experience and train someone in an area that that's not our expertise.
Sure.
So if I can take the expertise of all these other organizations and bring them in, and we can work collaboratively to change the structure of an individual to put them, back to a point in their life that right now they're not able to do on their own.
Right.
Well, between us and other organizations that are willing to work with us, and we have examples from some of our sister organizations throughout the country that have done this and been very, very successful. Lancaster, Pennsylvania has been doing this with healthcare for years, and at this point, the savings to the local hospitals are in the tune of millions of dollars a year by not having people in the emergency room, by going to the free clinic, where the residents are living.
Boy, it's a real trickle-down effect on this, isn't it?
Yeah, and they have the expertise to do that. And then if someone is sick, well, they have the ability to put another person there, where if I'm trying to hire one individual to do everything, it just works. So we're putting all of that together in our strategic plan so that once we have the building, then part of the expansion of the physical structure is, okay, let's now bring all these arrangements in so that when we have the roof, that we can start putting all of these different segments in to take that person from the street to an apartment or a home.
You're already talking with some of these other organizations.
Yes.
Have your ideas generally been receptive?
Yes, actually, yes. Yeah. I mean, particularly, in our area here, we have such an opioid problem that there are a lot of people interested in helping, overcome that. And naturally, there's a percentage of individuals that we deal with that also, but that's not the only issue. There's, again, we live in an area where there's a lot of people interested in helping other people. And, the organizations with health costs and the like being what they are in the institutions that exist, well, to be able to come and offer some of those services, every organization, every hospital and the like has to take a percentage of their overall income to help the community. Well, if they can come and help the community in a confined space where it's structured, and we know, one of the issues today with addiction is you go to the emergency room, the minute you can stand up straight and look straight, you have to leave. Now in Lackawanna County, there's now this warm handoff that's happening, which is a great step. But in our case, if we have a residential program where it's not just going to be a warm handoff for a day or two, but we can put someone into a structured program that can come out the other side, an active working family member, citizen again in the community. There's a considerable amount of interest. There's a whole lot of questions naturally, but that's what we're working on, and hopefully we can discuss further along at a different
it's a master plan that looks as though it has some great potential. Now, in the meantime, before that comes into being, and I think we all hope that it will, you're still offering services right now.
Yes.
How do you measure the success of what you're doing already? Do you have a lot of people that are coming back again? Have you had a number that have been able to go out and get successful employment or accommodations, et cetera?
We've had some. You know, the difficulty without that overnight is someone comes in, we help them out, we give them clothes, we get them food and the like, you know, but if they're going back into, like you said, a tent camp, well, you know, we're all creatures of our surroundings, and when you go back to a surrounding that isn't conducive to, you know, getting away from there, then it hurts.
It's a tough battle to wage, you know, and again, on a related topic, the biggest outrage and outcry now is the distribution of free Narcan for Pennsylvania. Yet, folks who have diabetes, which they didn't usually incur on their own, can't afford insulin, thousands and thousands of dollars a month, and for something that, you know, they had no bearing over. So it's such a controversial topic now. I wonder if if you're haunted by the folks saying, I'm not going to help these druggies, when people who have legitimate, bona fide, non-self-created medical problems can't afford what they need to live.
Well, and I think like any other conversation, there's at least 2, maybe 10 sides to that conversation, you know, because, you know, the premise of everybody is, you know, self-induced is not true either. You know, there are people that, yes, are they drug addicts and are they repetitive? Yes. You know, but there are also people that, you know, became addicted because of an injury or, you know, a whole lot of other things. I mean, today opioids are given if you have a hangnail, you know, so it's, so someone gets on that and now, you know, they can't get off it. Well, now heroin is cheaper than cigarettes. So, you know, the issue is that once they're addicted, again, without some form to get you from here to there, you know, one of the difficulties and statistics I recently heard for people with addictions is that, you know, most programs are 28 to 30 days. The people that have successfully overcome their addiction have gone through at least 12 30-day programs. Oh. So that in its own right, you know, has its limitations as far as success goes. You know, that's one of the reasons we're talking about a 12-month program, because we can all pretty much modify our behavior for 30 days. And I'm not criticizing anyone, you know, or making any claim, but, you know, there's a difference between, you know, being in an environment where you can make a life change versus just trying to get from here to there. You know, I want to get to the corner, well, I'm going to scratch and crawl and everything to get to the corner, but when I get to the corner, can I stand up? You know, and so what we're trying to do is say,
okay, a good gauge.
Yeah, how can we make sure they're standing up? You know, how can we make sure, and again, as you mentioned, since we're a faith-based organization, part of our aftercare that we're looking to is to try to communicate with the local churches so that this person, as they're leaving, can become part of a community that's not, you know, a self-contained community, but the community, you know, that we live in. Sure. But, you know, your question about there are people that are addicted that it's not by choice, you know, and the rub is always, yes, you know, I've had diabetes in my family, so insulin and everything else, and yes, they are paying for it. And Narcan is made readily available. Now, you know, the issue with someone who is overdosed, you know on the spot whether they're coding, sort of unlike a disease that could be a long drawn out thing. And the choice as a human being, what do? Do we let them you know, die, or do we do something that we know can help them?
And I bring that up only because it stirred up such a furor that I could not believe in the past couple of weeks. It stirred up such a furor.
Consideration.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I think every one of those conversations have validity. You know, the problem is, okay, so now what do we do? And I don't know as one of the answers is to not do anything. You know, I think that's the wrong answer no matter what we're talking about. So how do we figure out, you know, all of these situations that have validity and do have issues, and how do we work through each of those in their own right?
Now, as we get toward our closing moments, I'd like to ask, what is it that the mission needs to continue its operations and hopefully expand into this plan that may do a lot more good for a lot more people over a span of time. You need volunteers, you need donations.
Yes,
What kinds of
yes.
things are
Yeah,
needed?
I mean, today, naturally, it's winter, so we always need socks. We need male and female underwear, hygiene products, what we would call bed rolls, what the rest of us call, a blanket. Something, because the reality of the kind of weather we're in, if it gets wet, well, I can't sleep. What I slept in last night, I can't sleep in tomorrow night because it's soaking
Need a
wet.
change
so,
of,
so we need,
yeah.
we just need, and we go through coats, socks, long underwear, things like that. Those are the daily needs all the time.
Is socks the #1 item, as
Yes.
we hear on the commercials of all homeless shelters, correct?
It is, because, think about it again. Most homeless are walking in somebody else's shoes. They may or may not fit well. They may be worn out to a certain degree.
May get wet.
And once they get wet, we have an individual who's been in the hospital because he had such bad frostbite, because he was in a tent and he got wet and,
Stayed like that.
Yeah. So those are the immediate needs. Moving forward, the big one is, I would love the opportunity to speak to people who may know someone who has a building, sort of needs to be in a commercial area because we don't want to be in anyone's neighborhood.
Not in my backyard, huh?
Yeah. A commercial facility. We're looking at probably, at least 15,000 square feet and up. So if someone knows somebody, I'd love you to give me a call.
Well, that's what I'd like to close with then. How can, if anybody wants to donate products, donate their time, donate financially, or through suggestions to help this big future plan,
Right.
how can they get a hold of you?
The website is www.keystonemission.org. We also have a Facebook page, same thing. Our phone number is 570-871-4795. I'm John Gleason, and be happy to communicate with anyone. The website, we have a donate button, so that on the website you can find out a little bit more information about who we are, what we do, but you can also donate online. And naturally, as we started out, we're a donation-based organization, so unfortunately, we always need finances.
Sure.
And in order to do some of these things, honestly, I'm looking for some people who may have larger networks that would put us in touch with people that have the heart for, restoring individuals that can even get us to, what we're talking about is a different level than where we're at.
Sure.
And we need help, financially, networking, physical needs, buildings, things like that. So that
Well, John Gleason, hopefully someone out there watching will have some of the answers to your questions, and next time you're back, we may be talking about how many floors your operation
Yeah.
Good luck, John.
is on now. Thank you so much for joining us. Rusty,
Good to
thank
see you, Dave.
And
to
Mark
see you, Mark.
Murray, thank you. Rusty, you're going to have the helm next week.
You'll be off for a
I'm
week,
gonna
and I'll
off
be
for
here.
a week.
Yes, indeed.
I'm going to hide for a while and see if I can help out at home a little bit.
It's your turn now.
I'm David DeCosmo, Free CTV Live. Till we see you again, here's hoping all your news is good.